everyone to our regular Board of Trustee meeting for Tuesday, August 10th, 2021. Is there a motion to open? Trustee Sullivan is in the building and she'll be with us as soon as she can. Can we rise for the pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Of community solar, but I also wanted to recognize Betty and others here who have contributed very strongly to the Clean Energy Communities campaign that has been successful for Dobbs Ferry and will be the subject of a discussion you'll have later with grant funding available. And I fully endorse the idea of upgrading the HVAC for the building using those funds, and it's something an excellent way to take advantage of the state's funds and take advantage of your community's engagement with clean energy along many different fronts. So congratulations to one and all for that work. Second of all, Sustainable Westchester, as a nonprofit comprised of cities, towns, and villages throughout all of Westchester County, is often monitoring policy developments at the state level that might impact us down the road. And we have circulated a letter for our Westchester power municipalities, such as Dobbs, to consider submitting as the opposing a certain petition that's in front of the Public Service Commission for a national grid initiative that, if brought here, would likely cause harm to our local community choice aggregation. So I've circulated that, and I'd be happy to engage with you, Mayor, or Administrator Leans, or anybody else, or your attorney on that as a short letter of support. Those letters are due August 23rd. Finally, let's see if I go to the presentation, which is actually just 2 slides long. And I go to present over here.
Actually, can I go down to-
Oops, okay.
Yeah.
And then share screen.
Actually, I'm not seeing. I don't see the shared screen on here.
The first slide says community solar and has my name and email on it. So the second slide is really a description of how community solar works, which I can try to narrate. But if we're ready, here we go.
We can do it. There we go.
Fair enough. So many of us think of solar as being on our roof that serves the meter that reduces the electricity we buy from the utility. Under state regulations, community solar has been enabled, which allows Patty to have solar on his warehouse roof. Let's say if he had a big warehouse, and I could subscribe to it and benefit from that, and not have to have it on my roof if I were a renter or my roof was too shady. And so under community solar rules, municipality or facility owners who operate meters that pay electricity can actually subscribe to the electricity that is being put into the grid at another location. And so this is has numerous terms, but we'll just call it community solar for simple purposes. And the way it effectively works is that a local solar farm will inject electricity into the grid. The local power grid takes that power in and flows it through to the community. Because it was injected, it has a savings.
Sorry.
All right. Because that electricity was injected into the grid and meant that the utility avoided the cost of a peaker plant somewhere else, which is very expensive, there's a savings involved that the utility passes on to the community. The community is given an electric bill. You get an electric bill. And let's say your share of that solar farm produced $100 worth of electricity. You get negative $100 on your electricity bill from the utility because they didn't have to buy that supply. And when you go to pay the solar farm for injecting that grid electricity into the grid, you're getting that at a 10% discount and are billed only $90, which is where the savings comes in. So your electricity bill shows that savings. And what we've proposed, been able to work out with municipal account holders such as New York Power Authority, account holders such as Dobbs Ferry, that your New York Power Authority accounts are now also eligible for these community solar savings of up to 10% per bill. Obviously, with a solar farm that produces more electricity in the summer, the savings may be higher in the summer than in the winter when there are fewer hours of sunshine. So there's a seasonality to this, to the dollar amount of the savings, but the percentage savings is up to 10% per bill.
Right now, individuals can do this.
Individuals, yes, absolutely. Individual, we've signed up well over 2,000 individual households in the community solar projects we have available as individual residential accounts that are relatively small. And now we're going back to municipalities to speak to them about their larger accounts. Like we're talking with Newcastle about their filtration plant account. We're speaking with you about some of the accounts that might run this building or firehouses. And we're trying to aggregate and spread the solar savings around among the municipal customers as well.
So when we all signed up during the spring for that, we signed up for what you described, right?
Yeah.
So now the choice for us is whether we as a village would want to expand that to our structures, either the DPW building or the library or this building, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only difference is that you may be an account holder at New York Power Authority, but that electricity is delivered by Con Edison in any case. Whereas at your home, you're just a Con Ed customer to begin with. So we're working through New York Power Authority to make that available for you.
Okay, so is this available now for us as a municipality?
Yes, we have signed up quite a few accounts from the town of Mamaroneck, for example, and the other municipalities are considering it. We're presenting tonight or next week in Portchester. We've presented to the town of Newcastle. We're looking to present to the city of Peekskill, the town of Austining, and so there's a long list of communities that we're trying to help take advantage of this.
Okay, so I think the number of us have signed up for it individuals, so I think some of us are familiar with it. So do we have any other questions at all?
No, this is a great thing. It's a great idea and the village should definitely participate, in my opinion.
Yeah, we've just done a little calculation depending on how many accounts we are able to sign up and match with an existing solar asset because the village would be considered an anchor tenant as opposed to an individual residential, not an anchor tenant, I'm thinking of malls, but an anchor subscriber of the asset versus individual residential accounts, that your savings is roughly $2,500 to $5,000 annually, depending on how many accounts we can package together with existing capacity on these rooftops. These are largely going to be rooftops that are located in the Executive Boulevard area of Yonkers or on rooftop two-story office buildings in the Elmsford Hawthorne area. So they're relatively local to you.
All right, that sounds good. And I think the next step, maybe Richard, for us is to put it on maybe the agenda for sometime in September, and we can decide if we want to move forward with it. Okay?
Send over the draft agreement, we can review it.
We circulated one, but I'll make sure that I get you the latest agreement. The agreement that you'll sign takes the form of a standard disclosure form, which is required under uniform business practices from the Public Service Commission. A lot of fine print, but we'll get the latest version of that to the village for discussion.
We appreciate it.
And that's the end of this slideshow.
Sounds good. Thank you.
May it be the shortest of your evening. I don't know. I guess I'll just walk away. Do you want me to stay for this clean energy communities discussion, or is that?
Totally up to you.
Okay, I'll sit and listen for a little while. Yeah.
Next action item is a public hearing, it's a continuation of a public hearing to consider introductory local law to amend Village Code Chapter 112, Article 3, proposed expansion of the village's smoking prohibitions. Is there a motion to open this public hearing? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? Public hearing is now open. I know that we spoke about this at the last meeting, and we had some reservations about how specific the law was. I shouldn't say how specific, how overreaching we thought the law was. So we've held it over to today for further discussion on it. Let me just say, and I know we said it last time, the discussion about whether or not marijuana or cannabis should be legal is long gone. It's not an issue that is for us any longer. It is legal. The issue later on for us would be whether we want dispensaries and whether we want to allow it to be consumed in that location. The law that we're talking about right now is whether we should restrict smoking any further than we already have. There was talk about, do we want to have allow smoking in parking lots, or do we want to have it out on the sidewalk? And we had a very good discussion about it. And I think as a result of that, we do have suggested law that was drafted, right, Laura Lee?
Yes, this has been revised based upon your comments at the last, at the initial opening of the hearing.
And just a summation of it, what does it prohibit and how is it different than what we currently have? If that's unfair for you.
No, not at all. Currently, you have chapter 112 in your code, which covers regulations related to alcoholic beverages, local regulations, alcoholic beverages, and also local regulations as to no smoking or smoking prohibitions. The only location currently in your code for smoking prohibitions is the public park.
What is the proposed?
The proposed specifically talks about the public parks and also includes those recreation areas which have playgrounds, athletic fields and courts, and any spectator areas and bleachers, plus any independent picnic areas. And it talks about parking lots or structures, but again, this is completely within your purview to decide where you want to, and again, cannabis is already in your code. It's already in the definition in your code of smoking. So that's not what this is. This is just simply to clarify local regulations where smoking would be prohibited. It also includes areas within 12 feet from those lists of areas if there's members of the public in proximity. So this has been revised based upon comments I had received in writing from Trustee Patino, plus also comments that you circulated amongst yourselves when we were having the public hearing.
Just to be clear, as far as like schools or places of worship,
Indoor prohibitions are already in place by the Clean Air Act and the derivations thereof. So the county health code, New York State health code, indoor places of employment are already included in smoking prohibitions.
but I'm also referring to in front of the school or in front of the church or.
Yes, that's included in your education law. Those areas are already defined in terms of prohibitions. These prohibitions would be the areas just exclusively under your care and control or ownership. That's all this is. It just includes any areas the village owns or the village has exclusive control over. So this just is an itemization of those areas. It's a reduction. I believe this had 25 feet. The last month it said proximity within 25 feet. Trustee Patino sent some materials that said 12 feet is a more reasonable distance from these public areas. And also, we just wanted to be sure that your findings and declaration of policy are based upon the effects of secondhand smoke. So that was clarified based upon information that Trustee Patino had provided to me. I do believe that there's been a publication, which I just received about 10 minutes ago from NICOM, which suggests that you should use the state definition rather than trying to come up with your own, the state definition of smoking. So I can take another look at that as well, but clearly you can see by the areas that are neither underlined nor crossed out that the smoking and burning of tobacco and any weed or plant-based material is already prohibited. So again, we're not expanding the things you can smoke. We're just expanding and making clear the areas in which smoking of any kind is prohibited.
Right, so it says the proposed language would be includes property within the village of Dobbs Ferry that is owned and or controlled by the village, specifically public parks, recreation areas including playgrounds, athletic fields and courts, spectator areas or bleachers, and picnic areas, parking lots or structures, and areas within 12 feet from the above areas when in use by members of the public. Anybody from the board have any comments?
I've got a question. So if someone is a smoker and they work in the village, walking out of their building, would they be able to smoke on the sidewalk? Or is that now prohibited? It doesn't seem clear to me in this.
Doesn't say sidewalk. Trustee Patino asked that we remove sidewalk, so we did.
So previously, there were two other components of this, and those were sidewalks and streets. And I thought it was important to leave some wiggle room for people to be able to smoke, and whether that's whatever they're smoking. But the data shows that sort of developing lungs are more susceptible to secondhand smoke, and that there is a certain distance where outdoor secondhand smoke still has a negative impact. And so that's why we sort of focused on the areas where there's high concentrations of people or there's high concentrations of children. We don't have anything to say over the schools because they already have their own laws about that. You can't smoke on any school property. So it's sort of we're past that. But we were trying to imagine some scenarios where if someone were smoking, they could be given an alternative. Well, you can't smoke here in the park, but you take a walk up the street and you can continue smoking, rather than sort of force confrontations where they're not necessary. And so that was the idea behind it. So those are out, Trustee Taylor, sidewalks and streets, but we left in, Lori created a little better definition of the areas where we should prohibit and where we should enforce the prohibition.
And you can add sidewalks and streets within 12 feet of these areas. So you can include sidewalks and streets, not entirely, but you could, for example, put it in section 4. You could add sidewalks and streets if they are within 12 feet of the areas that are listed above, when members of the public are present. So, it's really up to you to define the locations. The laws give you the ability to provide local regulations in this way. It does not supersede the other regulations that are already in place. The New York State Health Code, the Education Law, the Clean Air Act, all of that stuff remains.
And how much did the chief chime in on this last time around?
I was going to ask the chief since he's here.
I would just like to know about current problems that we have with smoking in public areas and whether or not this is helpful or problematic, or if you have anything you want to chime in on the enforcement of this if we were to pass it like this.
And clearly it provides an opportunity for instruction. I know that the police don't like to hand out tickets for these kinds of offenses, but this would provide an opportunity for his department to provide instruction to the public if they needed to be instructed.
Answer to your question,
Chief, can you? I know you don't. You're welcome.
we don't, I can't think of the last time we got a phone call about somebody smoking just in general. So I don't really, I can't say that that's a problem as far as what we've been dealing with. And I would just ask, let's not overcomplicate things for the officers. And I would just kind of potentially just keep it in line with the normal smoking restrictions. I don't like the idea of potentially turning code violation into a penal law arrest should things go sideways. Does that make sense? So I would just say keep it simple and defer to you. Questions or?
Thank you, chief.
Thanks.
Anybody else on the board? Okay, so as this is a public hearing, is anybody from the public who'd like to speak to this? Bye.
My name is Susan Barrow. I'm a resident of Dobbs Ferry. I just have one question. I realize this is a separate matter than marijuana shops and stuff. But you're discussing whether or not to allow smoking here, there. I don't know if you can consider one without the other.
Right, you cannot. It's smoking all together. So it couldn't be, oh, you're allowed to smoke a cigar, but you're not allowed to smoke a cigarette or something like that. So it's gotta be smoking. And it's defined what that would be in the law.
It's currently defined, including marijuana already.
And it's we prohibit in specific areas, actually not allowing it in specific areas.
Okay, so you're just considering the sidewalk issue? Whether that should be.
We're not
kept in?
considering the sidewalk anymore. That's removed. We're no longer considering it.
It's mostly about parks and playgrounds, right? It was just parks,
village
and now
owned
we're, and now we're more specifically outlining the playground and village-owned property as well.
Well, I think that would be very important to keep in.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, my input at the last meeting was exactly highlighting what the chief just mentioned. It's not a reported problem of the sidewalk. That's the reason why we have a very detailed discussion at the last meeting that it hasn't been a problem. So why will we consider on restricting it? We have a lot of restaurants in the village. They have regulations to follow by the state. I just think that that will be complicating things more than we should.
So are we okay, we could move on this today.
We can, but why do we have parking lots or structures in them? Like, what does a village-owned structure mean? I think that was what Larry was trying to get at, like
Parking structure.
parking lots or parking structures.
You want me to add that word?
Well, it just seems like a village-owned building, like a building would be a structure, so it seems like it could be like you couldn't smoke any, within 12 feet of a village-owned building. Or people could make that.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
intent
do
was
that
parking
anyway.
structure.
Oh, I hear you.
You can't do that anyway.
In front of a village-owned building?
You can't, there's a, we looked, the last meeting, we looked at this, there, Lori, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't smoke 25 feet within the boundary of a public building,
A public workspace, yeah.
public
pub-
workspace. So
public
that's already,
buildings.
that's already not.
It's already covered, yeah. But certainly I can see the confusion, and I can add the word parking
Sure.
if you'd like that.
So then the only parking lots that we're talking about are what, like Waterfront and 99 Cedar?
Behind Village Hall.
Yeah, it's just the part that's more than 25 feet from the building.
At trustee Patino's request, I shortened that to 12, so
Or 12 feet. Well, no, you said the state law though for public
Yeah,
buildings is 25
public
feet.
buildings, right. In
Right.
terms of the other areas, it would be, the local code would say within 12 feet of the playground if there's members of the public in the playground.
I just think I don't understand the added benefit. I mean, if we're not doing sidewalks, I'm not sure there's a
I don't
benefit to parking
either,
lots,
and
so I just would leave it
hadn't-
out.
I had left that out of my suggestion last time because I don't really see the benefit. You're gonna give someone a place to go and have a cigarette at the back of a parking lot seems perfectly reasonable, but I don't know how everyone else feels about
So
it.
you're suggesting.
My
We
main
cut-
issue was to
we
take it
cut
off streets and sidewalks. That was the main-
Parking lots or structures.
Right.
You take that out.
No, I'm personally for keeping it out of parking lots, mainly because of Waterfront Park. But, the parking lot at Waterfront Park, I think, could be problematic if we allow smoking there, because I don't think we allow smoking there now, do we?
The park, only the park. Right now, your chapter only
We've got a train station there, and,
prohibits. Yeah. And well, the MTA has regulations, and those
For the train
regulations
station. Yeah.
prohibit anywhere in an MTA structure. So that already exists.
That's
Yeah.
the platform and the bridge. I would leave the parking lot off, to give people an opportunity to go away from the, where people are sitting.
Well,
Well, that's essentially what people do if they want a cigarette while they're waiting
Which is
for
the
a
decent
train.
thing to do. We
Yeah.
shouldn't punish people for doing what is perfectly reasonable.
So what's the thought? We don't have to do this today. We could decide, think about it, but do we want to remove parking lots so people can smoke at the parking lot at Waterfront Park or here? Or do we want to?
Well, the only thing certainly with Waterfront Park is, again, you've got a lot of children running in and out of the parking lots. You've got families coming in and out of cars, so that's my concern there, but you can't, I don't know, can you just do Waterfront Park and not have the other parking lots? Or is parking lot, would have to do all three?
I think people would prefer to have them smoke in park in Will Park parking lot because of the train station, right?
I mean, the Waterfront Park, yeah.
Waterfront, because
Yeah.
what they're saying is people are waiting for a train and if you
Mhm.
can't smoke on the platform. I mean, be right, I guess they could smoke in their car, but people do go to the lot and wait while they're waiting for the
Mhm.
train. I've seen that. A lot myself. So,
The whole idea is not to create scenarios where you create an issue, potential, what the chief just
Right.
discussed, right? You have why overcomplicate things? The point is to get people away from playgrounds, picnics, barbecues, those kind of things, right? Where you're in close proximity to other people or you're close proximity to children. And so the parking lot, if your kids run around the parking lot, then you're not a good
Yeah,
parent. You shouldn't you need to be worried about something else, not other smokers. So I think that people aren't, setting up picnics in the parking lot. That's why I think it's a good alternative if someone is smoking and someone complains and an officer comes down and they say, listen, you can't smoke here, but you can go over the parking lot. That's a situation where it's a de-escalation scenario, right? You don't have to force someone to either put out their cigarette or, argue with the officer. So that's kind of the logic here.
Mhm.
Same thing with, the sidewalk, right? If you're smoking in a park, someone can come and say, hey, look, can you just take that 15 feet over? Sure, no problem.
Mhm.
Crisis averted. That's all I did. Keep it simple, try not to create problems. And I think leaving the parking lots open
But,
is a good.
okay,
idea.
I'm gonna say, will it create problems of people gathering in the parking lots to smoke as a group?
We don't have that now. That's not a problem now. Why would we imagine that it's going to become one?
I'm just, with the cannabis law, it could possibly become one. It may not. I mean, we can cross that bridge when we come to it as well.
I sit
The other
down and
thing is-
I smoke cigars with my friends. I don't know, are we somehow, like, it happens, it's gonna happen.
Mhm.
But they're not gonna be doing it in a place where it's harmful, where it's harming other people, is the whole point. Like, let them do that. It's legal. It's okay.
I also think this is something we could revisit if it turns into something that appears to be a problem, right?
Yes, certainly.
Smoking parties in the parking lot at the
Yeah.
waterfront.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with the intent of this paragraph. I don't like the way it's worded, but that's a separate subject.
That's why we're
I
here.
don't think it's clear. Well, because it says property that is only controlled. I'm not sure it takes sidewalks out or somebody could read this and think the sidewalks are in here, which is what.
Are you looking at the amended version?
I believe it's the
Okay.
one that Liz sent.
It's a
the other
separate
day.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at the one in the packet, it's the old one.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, what he means is that, I see what you're saying, it should say includes properties in the village that's owned and controlled
By the village.
by the village. I see what you're saying, because it makes it seem like it's overly broad and then you're just specifying specific ones.
What's up, chief?
Just as I'm listening in about some concerns about people gathering to have smoking parties, so to speak, in the waterfront, understands, if they're driving, obviously that goes into a whole different driving while intoxicated. So again, there are other avenues that can potentially prevent these mass groups of, just using a waterfront park to smoke in that regard. So if that kind of maybe helps
Mhm.
put your mind at ease that there are other things that would certainly take effect, and we're certainly going to make sure that we don't have people operating motor vehicles while they're high. So that's just something else that I said, I don't know that this would become an issue per se.
Right.
I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
So not to put you on the spot, but are you okay if we remove parking lot?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And it's just like as trustee Patino said, it is an option. And again, if somebody's operating a motor vehicle and we get a phone call and they're behind the wheel, we're going to investigate that as a driving while intoxicated. So it's a totally different issue.
Okay.
So let's just do a straw poll. Laura, what do you feel about the parking lot?
But if it becomes a problem, we can revisit it. At this time, if it's not a problem, I don't think that we should complicate it.
Martina, how you feel? Christie, how do you feel?
I think taking out parking lots or structures, then it's good to go, I think.
Nicole?
I'd remove it.
Okay. Larry?
Agreed.
Donna?
Not happy about it, but Because of what the chief said, I would agree to take it out if we can revisit it if it does become an issue.
Okay, so I think we're going to move on this today, so.
Yeah. Oh, and just to point out to Deputy Mayor Cassell, it does say areas within 12 feet of the above. So within 12 feet of waterfront park would include the parking lot. So just
Not
that
all of it, but
portion,
yeah.
yeah. That's all.
It would
You're
have to
asking
be away from
people,
others in the
you're
parking.
asking people to step away, yeah.
Okay, so we can delete parking lots or structures.
Mhm.
Just a question, the structures we're talking, we don't have any parking structures, but should we have a parking structure? Would we want people smoking anything in a parking structure?
Well, we can revisit it
We can revisit if we get there.
if we're so lucky to get a parking
We build it, we'll
structure.
think about it. Okay.
So can I ask a question, Larry? Because it is saying it includes property within the village of Dobbsbury that is owned or controlled by the.
Specifically.
But is
Specific,
it
it
like,
doesn't say including, it says
I see.
specifically. You notice I took the word including out. So now it's just those areas that are in this list.
got it,
How
okay.
about you say certain property? That would take care of it. We want to just wordsmith your document.
Okay,
Okay, cool. You're the expert, not me.
I put the word certain before the word property in the first
I think
sentence.
that just makes it clear that it's not every property, whereas you read the first clause, and
Yeah,
it
sounds
reads
great.
as it is every property.
Are
Sounds
you
great.
okay with that? Lorelei?
Sounds great, yeah.
Okay.
I'll do whatever it is you need to.
So can I make this now, since I can close the public hearing and we can vote on this now?
If you close the public hearing, if there are no other comments to be
Right.
taken, then you can, yeah.
Is anybody on Zoom?
There's people here, but no one has their hand raised.
Okay. All right, so this is, no one else from the public wants to speak. I'm going to take a motion to close the public hearing. Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? Public hearing is now closed, and I think we can take action on this.
I have, I didn't prepare the resolution because
I know.
but I can prepare a resolution after the fact, which I usually just lay out the nights that you had the hearing, I put the dates in. And we're gonna actually resolve to adopt it as revised on the record tonight, so.
Okay, so is there a motion to adopt an amendment to the Village of Dobbs Ferry Code, Chapter 112, alcoholic beverages and smoking, to clarify the smoking prohibitions in Article 3, the local law to clarify the smoking prohibitions of Chapter 112, as revised on the record tonight? And I'm just, like I already read it, but I'll read it again. Park, public area includes property within the Village of Dobbs Ferry that is owned and or controlled by the village. What's the word we're gonna use now?
Specifically,
Public parks, recreation areas including playgrounds, athletic fields and courts, spectator areas or bleachers and picnic areas, and areas within 12 feet from the above areas when in use by members of the public. And just very quickly, prohibition, it shall be unlawful for any person to smoke or carry lighted, ignited, burning, or similarly activated tobacco, weed, or other plant-based products and other natural or synthetic substances in any public area within the village. All such lighted items must be extinguished prior to entrance onto such public area and shall be properly disposed of in a receptacle and not discarded on the ground. Is there a motion? Trustee Patino, second trustee Nell, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
thanks, I'll get that resolution to Liz for the minute.
Action item number 2 is a public hearing to consider an introductory local law to amend Village Code, Chapter 55, Section 2, Library Board Terms of Office. Is there a motion to open this public hearing? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Razi, all in favor? The public hearing is open. We've already had this brief discussion about this at the last meeting, but there is a request from the library board to amend the library board terms. Why don't you come up and, somebody come up and, or both of you, or you can tag team each other, or.
I'd like to introduce you to Allison Handel. She's one of our newer board members, and she actually reviewed the terms for the library board.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are requesting to amend the terms of the library board from 5 years to 3 years. We feel that the 5-year term is too long to attract quality candidates, to retain board members. People are discouraged by that kind of future commitment. And so we feel that the reduction will allow us to fill some of our vacant spots, to encourage current board members to sign on for additional terms, and is in line with some of the other committees and boards on this in this village.
That makes sense. Want to add anything?
I'm in full support of
Okay. Do any of the trustees want to add anything or comment on it?
No, I think it would be helpful because I think they have some attrition too, earlier than 5 years, which creates a lot of havoc for them to fill spots. So I think it will benefit the board and the library in general to have more consistent people.
Anything from the public who wants to speak on this?
Someone on Zoom with them.
Okay.
Sharon, can you hear us? Sharon?
No, I didn't. Did I press something? I didn't mean to. Sorry.
Oh, you didn't raise your hand. Never mind.
Since there were no comments from the public or from the board, I'm going to take a motion to close the public hearing. Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Davazio, all in favor. Public hearing is now closed. I think we're ready to move on this as well. Okay, so thank you, and we'll take a vote. So is there a motion to amend local law Chapter 55 to revise the term of membership on the library board from 5 years to 3 years? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? It's done. So you got it. Okay, good luck. Courtesy of the floor. So is anybody from the public, either live or virtually, who want to say anything to us?
Oh, there's someone.
Oh, sure, yes.
Paulette, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi. So I'm here before you as a parent and a member of the Dobbs Ferry Our Streets work group. In April, an Our Streets member gave a presentation to the traffic committee about walking tours and the benefits to the village of participating. These include gathering data to support future grant applications, complementing the village's complete streets and sustainability efforts, and demonstrating to residents that their elected officials are engaged on these important issues. This fall, Our Streets is spearheading a community walking tour to survey the main walking routes children take to Springhurst. Community walking tours are designed to get people thinking, observing, and experiencing how the environment works for all users, not just drivers, and discussing how to make it better for people of all ages and abilities. We are planning to hold the walking tour on Thursday, September 30th from 8 to 9:30 a.m. with a rain date of Thursday, October 7th. Holding the event during the weekday morning rush will give participants the best opportunity to understand the obstacles children face on their way to school. On our tour, participants use a checklist to assess the walking environment and record their firsthand experiences of street conditions. These events bring together diverse community members, including residents, students, elected officials, school district staff, and village employees, to share concerns and brainstorm solutions. We would like to invite all members of the board to attend this important event. One of the things that make walking tours so valuable is the participation of a wide variety of community members. We're also planning to invite state and county legislators, including Senator Andrew Stewart Cousins, Assemblyman Thomas Abenati, and Legislator Mary Jane Shimsky. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on September 30th. Thank you.
Paulette, do you need her address? Paulette, can
Address.
you give us your full name and address?
Sure, Paulette Rivers. I live at One Discern Drive, Dobbsbury, New York.
Thank you, and thank you for the information, and we'll be sure to put it out there.
This is
Thank
something
you.
organized with the police and everybody, like the proper people to set up the event.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Do they have to organize that with the police and like the proper, usually those kind of events get organized through, I think, Liz and the chief.
Is this the first time you're hearing about this? Chief?
Yeah, we just need to know.
Well, I assumed that it was already, we've done this before, right?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's a
Well, they're
survey.
walking tour
on the sidewalks.
I
They've
think it's
done,
an
yeah, they've
experience.
done other walks to school. We just need to ideally know the route.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll follow up with that information.
So Paulette, if you could just follow up with the police and the village clerk, so we are aware of that, okay?
Sure,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else for courtesy of the floor? So let's move to discussion items. You guys are here for the number 3. Why don't you come up? We'll move on 3 to number 1. So
I think I have Linda Whitehead on the
the
phone.
lawyers are,
I'm sorry. She's in Croton this evening, so I said you were too, so she'll have time. It's just to schedule a public hearing and to give her any advice on additional information you're looking for. So
okay.
I'm sorry. She does not have to share her
Well,
screen.
she's doing action item number 2 then.
Yes, well, you're doing action item number 2. She wanted to be available in case there were questions you had, or whether you wanted to give her any more advice on things you want to see at the public
All
hearing.
right, could we just do number 1 and then get to her?
Sure.
Okay, so let's move to number 1 then. Discussion regarding the revised site plan for 398 Ashford Avenue and consideration of a resolution to schedule a public hearing. So we are in receipt of a letter from the applicant, Repeat Management, and we're also in receipt of a report from our village engineer describing the plan. And she lists all the problems or issues that are involved with the request. And I know that we're missing the secret application. So can we set a date even though we don't have the secret application?
Yes, if you take a glance at the resolution, the most important thing here is that we need to make a referral to the county planning because of its location on the Sawmill River Parkway ramp. So in order to give the county the 30 days that the law requires, I just made it conditioned upon receipt of that EAF so you can get that referral out as soon as possible. And then I also suggested that the public hearing be scheduled for the 28th, which is your second meeting in September, and that we may have enough time. I didn't want to hold up the applicant again. So if you don't have everything.
I have sent it over on June 29th. I sent that over, that filled application out to Valerie. My understanding was that she would forward it. I wasn't sure how that was supposed to be submitted, but that has been filled out and sent over a month ago. If I get direction on where that needs to go, I'm happy to submit it to wherever it needs to go.
Submissions, all the submissions to the board go through the building department and the clerk's office. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to drop that off, but that has been reviewed by the consultant, and I just wasn't provided the further direction, but I will make sure to drop that off. I could do that tomorrow.
So, in other words, instead of holding him up again, I suggest that you make the conditional resolution because he's going to send it tomorrow. You can get the application out right away to the county planning and then give them the 30 days. You most likely will have your comments back before the 30 days expires. But that's why I scheduled it for the second meeting in September, which gives you time to get all those materials back.
Okay, so we're ready to move on. So is there a motion?
Just one moment. Item number 4 in the memo from Ms. Manastra has a couple of zoning variance requirements. Is this going to zoning, or is this board going to grant those variances?
Right.
This board will take up the issue, anything on a site plan.
So we have to-
This board can decide after the public hearing, so.
He already went to the planning board, didn't he?
Well, I mean, the zoning. Zoning
So it
board
needs
is-
waivers for
So
certain
item
things.
four-
Says AHRB, there's certain issues too, so.
Well, the AHRB will see it. Usually that's sent over when the building permit application comes in with all of the details on the construction materials. So the AHRB usually gets it from the building department when the building, that's how it was, Ed instructed me, is that upon receipt of the building permit application with all the level of detail the AHRB will need.
This is true. However, there are 3 zoning variance issues. The minimum square footage required for a unit, the parking, and then the impervious surface coverage. So I'm just asking if we are going to take on those variance questions, or if we're going to rely on the zoning board to do.
Your code allows you to waive elements of the site plan. So in the past, you have always taken those up upon the presentation of a site plan. So I believe the 600 square foot dwelling unit was discussed earlier. And yes, that is something that this board can take up as a waiver. If you would prefer to hold everything off until it goes to zoning board, but at this point, the important thing is to get your comments back from the county planning, and you can't do that until you deem this a complete application.
So are we comfortable with us dealing with the waiver issue?
Did you mention the parking waiver too?
There's the parking, impervious surface, the minimum square footage for a unit. So
I think often haven't we done that, if we're gonna do a waiver or something else, but with recommendation from the planning board typically, right? I mean, even
We
if the
have the
decision
planning
is
board-
ours, they've had a chance, we want them to have had a chance to have input.
They've already seen this and sent it back to you.
We have.
did they
As is.
comment on those items?
The planning board
On the
recommended
packet.
that the application be back for.
I believe that Valerie Monastra's earlier memo discussed what the planning board asked you to look at specifically, but no, they did not comment on that, because at that point, they were sending it back to you with parking still on property not owned and under control by this applicant. And it was only after you recommended the applicant speak directly to the planner where we were able to clean up the site plan so it was complete.
So does Valerie consider the site plan complete?
Yes, she does.
Okay.
That's not my understanding of reading the letter.
Yeah, I thought that when I read the letter too, it sounded like she didn't think it was complete, so.
She's available to get on.
She's here, on?
She can get on.
Yeah, let's put her on.
Yeah, let's put her on. Because I read the same thing you did, Mike.
Yeah, it says she doesn't understand how the parking works.
This is the board may wish for the site distances and the calculator to show on the site plan.
She just texted me.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. She has actually been asking for guidance from the building department on how the parking calculations are made. Are they made just on the new units, or are they made on the total units? And I don't believe there's been a definitive answer from the building department.
There has been, I'm not sure if Ed's in the room, but there has been direction, and the plan has been adjusted according to Ed's direction to reflect that it's on the added units. And the site plan reflects those changes as recently as a week ago.
Valerie there? Okay.
She did say.
Sorry, could you hear me?
Yes,
Can
sorry.
you give us your
Okay.
name? Can you give us your name for the record?
Sure. David Rothbard. Good to see everyone, by the way.
David, don't be offended. We're just gonna put you on mute for now, okay?
Thank you, Mayor.
it's not available. Why don't we come back to this?
Is she signed on?
Because, I mean, I can ask you that. Can you?
Oh, she's here. She's here, great. She's available to actually attend on the 28th, so she will be present for whatever hearings you have on the 28th.
Great.
Valerie, can you hear us? Valerie?
Yes.
There she is. There you go. Can you speak to the three variances, waivers question? The question is, does this need to go to the zoning board, or is it something that you feel is complete enough that the Board of Trustees can discuss in a waiver format?
So the Board of Trustees can discuss this in a waiver format. It is complete. The building inspector has reviewed the potential waivers that are needed, and all of them, he agrees that do not need to go to the zoning board. Once that the village board can contemplate providing waivers at the end of the approval process.
And you consider this complete?
So the site plan itself is complete. It is the current site plan. We actually worked with the applicant over the course of the last couple months and met with them and spoke to them over the phone to make sure that the zoning, that the parking spaces reflect no encroachment of the neighboring properties. There are a couple things that still are outstanding dealing with, we had questions about the tandem parking spaces. We also had questions for the board to deliberate on the on-street parking spaces. And then again, the overall issue with the whether you want to allow for the waiver for the parking space or have a pileup as part of that. But at this point in time, everything else is complete on the application.
Okay.
So we're really down to the final dealing with the parking spaces as well as the on-street parking.
And the Westchester Planning Camp.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
So I mean, I think that, the goal is to try to move
Move this along.
gentleman ahead, and, we like what he's doing, and we want to encourage it. I just don't want to skip over some processes because we like what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's all. I wonder if, are you still there? She's there. The question you had about the impervious surface coverage that requires a variance, was that addressed at all at the planning board?
Yeah, so everything right now, what you have in front of you was presented at the planning board. And actually the planning board referred it over to the village board with 8 spaces. And so the building inspector, myself, met with the applicant to reduce those spaces because the 8 spaces encroached into neighboring property. And at this point, it is everything that is being proposed is proposed on their property alone, except for the 2 on-street spaces, which is what the village board needs to decide whether they believe that it is, safe in order to have those 2 parking spaces. And then I think the county is also going to weigh in as to the applicability of those 2 on-street parking spaces.
In the end, you may need a pileup. We don't know at this time until we receive.
Exactly. And I think that last piece will be determined as we continue moving through the process.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple moving forward for setting a date.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 at 6:30 PM? Subject to the receipt of a completed EAF environmental assessment form from the applicant, and that the project be referred to the Westchester County Planning Board based on the proximity of the subject matter to the Somer River Parkway in accordance with General Municipal Law 239. Is there a motion? trustee Sullivan, second trustee Pino, all in favor? It's unanimous.
And Mr. Mayor, it's possible if we receive the EAF that you can declare yourselves after review. We can provide a resolution so you can declare yourselves lead agency for purposes of seeker review, but that can't be done until we receive the EAF. So we have an extra agenda, your first agenda on the 14th. You could do that, and that would also help to move the project along.
Thank you, Laura Lee. Can I just mention one other thing in front of the board? I do want to say that if you guys have not noticed, there have been some temporary rumble strips that were put in after a lot of arm twisting on the exit coming off of the sawmill. Donna, I'm not sure if you've experienced them, but we're hoping that helps slow down traffic and slow down some of the accidents that we've been experiencing there. It does benefit, I think, everyone, life safety wise. Hopefully the chief would agree. It also makes those two spaces that we're proposing in front of the building safer as well. So I did speak to the lead engineer for the Department of Transportation, and he said that if the Board of Trustees approves permanent rumble strips, then that's something that they would consider as a next measure. So at some point, I'd love to talk to the traffic committee and see if we could bring that up on an agenda. But I think that is a step in the right direction after many years of accidents at that intersection.
Well, let me just say, David, Donna, myself, Mary Jane, and a representative from Andrea Stewart Cousins' office met with I think 3 people from the Department of Transportation, and we went over all the safety measures that should be implemented in that spot and what has been done in that spot. So they have agreed to a few items. One of them was the rumble strips, and I think
There's some signs.
And
There's
signs.
more
new signs,
signs
it's
now.
supposed to be
One
new
says
striping.
10 miles
Yeah.
per hour exit.
And they're going to look at another type of sign that they're going to put on. So we did have a very productive meeting with the state, and they were very, I think, amenable. I forgot the number, how many cars pass there every year, but it was a very significant number of cars that get off that exit every year. So they are doing what they can for now, and I want to thank Andrea Stewart Cousins and Mary Jane Shimsky for their putting together that meeting, and also for Don putting together that meeting. So we're going to move forward with that to make sure that's a safer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to leave Valerie on because the next item is,
Yeah, we'll need Valerie for this
Discussion
one.
item number 2 is to acknowledge the applicant's written request for a waiver of the affordable housing set-aside mandate at 19 Livingston Avenue, and to consider a resolution to set a date for a public hearing on that request. So Valerie, I know we have a letter from the attorney, and we have Valerie's report. Valerie, could you just speak to this a little bit?
Sure. I think at this point in time, this particular project is going to ultimately need to be referred to the planning board for full site plan review. But at this point, the applicant is specifically looking for a waiver to include affordable housing into the overall development project. And so the applicant needs to provide information as to the village as to the reasoning why they cannot include, and specifically financially reasons why they can't include the affordable housing unit into the overall project. And so the applicant has attempted to provide some information. And at this point, we identified that we thought additional backup for the financial infeasibility is needed. And we did have some questions dealing with their overall proposal, because right now that they are proposing to potentially purchase or rent, or purchase another unit within the village, and to either have that for sale or rental. And so we're asking some additional information from the applicant so that the board has a better sense of what it is that they're granting the waiver for. But in the meantime, there needs to be a public hearing associated with this waiver. And tonight, Lori Lee has a resolution on for the agenda to start moving this process forward, dealing with the public hearing, and then also moving forward a little bit with seeker and the county referral to get their input.
So just for the benefit of the public, I just want everyone to make sure what we're talking about. There is a proposed development at 19 Livingston, which is for us who lived here quite a while, that used to be Rudy's. And they, instead of doing an affordable housing unit, which is required under our law, they propose buying or renting long-term an affordable housing unit somewhere else in the village rather than do it at that particular property. And for us to grant that waiver, they have to meet certain requirements before we would even consider it. So they've attempted to do that. We've just heard Valerie indicate that there's still more information that is needed before we're even eligible, ready to make that decision. And just, Lori, so we can set that public hearing.
Yes,
without-
because that's the information that the applicant would need to bring forth at the public hearing on the
Do we
record.
have enough information to set a public hearing?
Yes, all the information you need to set the public hearing is a written request for a waiver. Now the burden shifts to the applicant to come forth with the information. And you can see the criteria in your code is they have the burden of justifying the request for a waiver in light of the goals of the affordable housing program. So they're going to come forward with their waiver request. They're going to come forward with information about the finances and the viability of an on-site unit, and they're going to come forward with a proposal in terms of the alternative. And I think Linda Whitehead is here. And if in addition to anything that's listed in the planner's memo, you would like to see some other things, she's here so you can say, in addition to these items that Valerie has set out, we would also like to see this, 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 and this. So they're coming in with this specificity at the hearing. So yes.
And shouldn't that be presented to us first before we even consider having a public hearing?
She did provide some additional initial information as part of your application package. And we're just asking for some additional backup dealing with the estimated construction costs.
So, right, and that will have to be presented at the hearing itself.
And we can always adjourn that hearing. if you don't
Sure,
want.
yes.
Right. Okay, so in what was presented, they gave a start as to why an affordable housing person couldn't afford to buy a unit there. So I guess my question, what I would like to see is, and they gave us some information about why they can't include it in the site, in the development as it is planned now because of steep slope, et cetera. So I would like to know financial viability of why they need 3,000 square foot townhouses on that site. Why is that the economic focus? And why do they have to have that particular type of development
And
there?
and Linda's listening, so that's the information that they'll be providing to you again on the record. So
I'd
yes.
also like to have more information about, right now, they owe us for this development, 27,000 square feet and 3 bedrooms. That's what we're supposed to get. Now, they are asking us to waive that and put it someplace else. So is it 1 unit? Is it more than 1 unit? Is it, I'd like to have more information about how we're going to cover that. Affordable housing should be for the benefit of the village, not for the developer. So I would like to ask them how they can make this more appealing, that this does become, that a waiver is more beneficial to the village than not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would encourage the board to certainly submit written comments to the attorney if they have anything in addition that they would want to address at that public hearing. So they can go forward.
Yeah, we
I
can move
didn't
along,
mean to cut you off.
And here's Miss Whitehead.
No, I just think it's,
So you heard the list and the comments so far?
I missed a little bit of what Trustee Cassell was saying because when you're being promoted, you get cut off for
Yes.
a few minutes, a few seconds.
She was discussing that she needed more information as to how you will meet the square footage that you're asking the waiver for and the 3 bedrooms you're asking the waiver for. So that, essentially more specificity on the option.
But even more than that, I want to know how that benefits the village.
Yes, that's
what they owe us.
Yes.
I want to know why that is more amenable to them giving us what they're supposed to be giving us there. And make it,
We did address that somewhat in the letter, but we can go into that a little further.
okay.
Yeah, and how do you guarantee if you go with the alternative that they find something to meet the alternative option to buy or build something? And what's the time period in which you're required to do that in? I guess it's the same time period that you sell the townhouses.
I think in Valerie's memo, she suggested that it be a condition prior to a CO.
She did. But people can have a building for a long time. I mean, we want it all to be like in tandem, but.
I
Right,
can
so the-
discuss that with my client.
So what is going to be discussed on the public hearing?
The public hearing is for them to justify the need for the waiver. All of this information will need to be presented on the record, and then you'll get a chance to determine whether it rises to the level to justify the request.
So a waiver will be granted if what is on the table and what is being offered is considerably enough for us to consider a waiver. So I just feel that we are moving or trying to move forward into a public hearing without having that information first.
Well, that information needs to be presented in a public hearing. So
Yeah.
the public can hear what is being presented and comment on it if they choose to do it.
Correct.
That's why it's being done in that
We're not
format.
gonna make a decision.
And,
that-
and we've made the proposal for what we would do. We can't identify a specific property right now because the market is moving so fast right now that if we identify a property today, it's going to be gone before even your public hearing.
And you have the discretion to deny the waiver. So obviously, you can't bind the applicant to off-site improvements. Everything needs to be presented to you to determine if it's sufficient.
So that's the key, is what they're presenting is sufficient.
Have they justified their request in light of the goals of the affordable housing program? So that's what they're coming in. They're coming in with their empirical financial evidence. They're coming in with any details in terms of constraints of the land. They're coming in with proof that they have sufficient wherewithal to purchase something of the same, at least the same square footage and
Or
build.
more.
Yes, and we'll listen to that. You can listen to that and then make a determination whether it's justified. And then you form that decision based upon the information presented at the hearing.
So, Mo, you think it's moving too quickly? How do you?
I do feel that we're moving too quickly. Normally, when we have a public hearing, it's after we as a board have reached a decision in something that is more solid. And then we present it to the public.
This is the first,
No, this is
the
a
first
little
time you're having a public hearing on this discrete issue. It has nothing to do with the site plan. You still have to refer the site plan, and that's months down the road. But if you determine that they don't justify the waiver, it's going to change the site plan.
The thing I wonder is if you do a 3-bedroom, like you have this whole analysis in there about how it's not affordable for somebody seeking affordable housing to purchase a 2,700 square foot. I imagine that would be true in a different building too, but I guess maybe you can, when you bring what other options you're talking about, you can talk about that at the same time.
Sure.
I just don't see the need that the community has of a 3,700 square feet, 3,700 square feet condominium. I just feel I think that it was Trustee Neil that shared that with us. It's like it's going against the vision of what we are trying to promote in Dobbs Ferry as affordability and diversity. I just really don't feel that that we have enough information to actually move this.
The topic here is really just about the requirement for an affordable housing. You're not yet looking at the site plan and the entire project. And your code has very specific provisions about the waiver. You've provided for the waiver in your code, and we're trying to address it as required by your code. And your code requires that you discuss that as part of a public hearing.
Right. So we'll get all the information from the applicant. We'll take the input from the public, and then we will decide whether we should grant it or not. And then depending what our decision is in there, we can say to them various different things. We want it maybe in a certain area or a certain type, or this, we want maybe 2 apartments of 1,500 square feet, that kind of a thing maybe. We can just discuss that.
So yes, so this is just on the discrete issue of whether the waiver is justified. And they bear the burden of bringing in that information. So
Right,
this is the
but I
first,
think that-
the first time your code will be, this waiver will be requested. It's the first instance.
I just want to go with trustee Cassell and trustee Garazzi, where I want to enforce upon that we want really, really, really good results to come out of this. Like we don't want to waste our time doing a public hearing if it's just going to come and it's not going to be enough. Because it should include affordable housing. That's what we wanted to include. And so come with your best offer, the best thing you can do so that we don't waste everybody's time.
I would say come with solid objective evidence instead of like you gave us numbers in your memo, and we'd like to see what the backup for that as
Right.
well.
Valerie put that in her.
Just like to add one thing, and this is partly a request to the applicant and partly a comment to the rest of the board. Historically speaking, developers have sought waivers for offsite affordable housing. That has not resulted in good quality, desirable units. And the reason is that they can build something unattractive of a lower quality because it doesn't impact the value of their units being offsite.
Right.
So I just ask that you bring forward some proposals or information as to how you will achieve an equal or greater level of quality of construction, sort of accessibility, light, air, views. I just want to know why this is and how this unit or units are going to be of equal or greater quality to the ones you're building at 19 Livingston.
Well put. Thanks, Michael.
Okay.
Okay,
Nice, wait and see.
so is there a motion to schedule a public hearing for waiver of the Dobbs-Ferry zoning code section 300.-40 affordable housing set aside and set the date for September 28th, 2021 for a public hearing to be held at 6:30 p.m. Is there a motion? Trustee Patino, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? Okay, the public hearing is scheduled for that date.
And it does appear, I have to double check, but it does appear you've already declared yourself lead agency. If that is the case, then we can remove that from the resolution that's in your packets. I'll double check the records, but it's possible we've already taken that step, and I'll double check.
Thank you very much. I'm off to my next meeting.
Thank you.
Action item number 3 is a discussion of a request for a proclamation declaring October 1st, 2021 as Scotty Shevlin Day and the Village of Dobbs Ferry, and a request for placement of a stone plaque in Blue Park in honor of the Shevlin. So
Something. Maybe.
Mayor, board, thank you. Mark Legiro, 25 Livingston Manor. And we're going to downshift gears a little bit from what's been going on. All right.
you don't want to build anything? You don't wanna-
Boy,
something.
let me do this first, then you can determine. To most of the residents of Dobbs Ferry, mention the name Scotty and you're likely to get a smile. To any one of those residents, David Scotty Shevlin may have been your teacher at Dobbs Ferry High School, or you exchanged veteran stories together. You may have talked and lunched with him at the Dobbs Ferry Senior Center. He might have been your soccer coach at Dobbs Ferry High School. I know, you might have thanked him for his honor guard duty at all assemblages of our Dobbs Ferry American Legion post and working the flea markets. At Gould Park, as an announcer, he may have called out your name at one time over the past 47 years when you were a Dobbs Ferry Eagles football player or a cheerleader. As a business owner, you were grateful that he would promote spending money locally during the football games. For nearly 50 years, Scotty's actions and dedication to the Village of Dobbs Ferry has added to the charm that we have come to enjoy as being a small river village. As a small informal committee, we are asking the board to consider declaring a David Scotty Shevlin Day on Friday, October 1st, 2021. The committee is also requesting permission to place a privately purchased plaque mounted on a rock to be located at Gould Park. The October 1st date would coincide with the Eagles' homecoming football night game. Westchester County Legislator Mary Jane Shimsky asked to participate with her own presentation. I met with Stephen Trezza recently, and we agreed together that the rock would fit nicely at the DeVoe Street entrance to the park. In the event that football games are moved to a different location in the future, the rock would follow it wherever they go. You have to push it or roll it or whatever. If approved, the committee will continue to work with Liz to fine tune the wording with Scotty's bio. But when it came down to it, Scotty gave his heart to Dobbs Ferry. About 10 years ago, Scotty in his mid-70s became very sick. And I'm talking about very sick. But he could have just faded into the sunset. But he was not finished giving back to the town he loved. I know he was hurting, but he could not let the seniors, the American Legion post, the football team down. I, myself, literally pushed him up the scaffolding so he could do the games. Not a good visual. There were many ways that you may have crossed paths with Scotty. And when he addressed you with a hi lassie or hi laddie, you were right where you belong, in a small river village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I just think we just discussed the size of the rock. Other than that, we don't have to do that right now. But
Well, I'll tell you, I have pictures on my phone of the exact location. I mean, I could get them to you guys. No more than 3.5 feet high. About the same way. Actually, we have a nice rock at the top of Gould Park that I might pull to do this. All right.
we can talk about that. Certainly, I don't think there's any issue with declaring October 1st Scotty Shevlin Day. That's not a problem. So we certainly encourage you to go forward with it. We'll just want to take a look at before we approve anything, the size of the rock, the placement of the rock. But you're already working with Steve and working through Liz, and I don't see any problems at all. Do any of the trustees see a problem? No. You got the green light.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there someone that we would give the proclamation to? Usually we give a proclamation. to someone.
Yeah, I know, that's
There's nobody.
the difficult part.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Betsy. She's
Okay.
involved in this too.
All right.
That's why I initially asked just for the day.
Right.
I mean, proclamation, yeah.
Who do we give it to? Right.
Or maybe there's some place it could be hung in the school, in the athletic area there.
Maybe. Okay, well, we can work that out. Thank you. Discussion item number 4 is a discussion of the amendment to code chapter 300-51, the tree removal permits. I know that trustee Patino has been working on this with Laura Lee. Mike, do you want to give us some initial background, and Laura Lee can?
Yeah, I'd like to credit the Conservation Advisory Board for doing a lot of the work here. But and someone from that board will join us at the public hearing in September to do a brief presentation. But because it is quite long, I'll just give a brief description of what the changes are and why they're important. Tree code as it currently stands is really devoid of any element of fines. So it's cheaper to cut down a tree and pay the very small fine than it is to apply for a permit. So there's a few parts to this that are important. And it's included in this draft legislation. The first are clear definitions of all the elements, similar to what we have in other parts of the code. The second is a clear process to permitting, also relating back to those definitions, makes it a sort of structured process, again, more similar to how we issue building permits, that sort of thing. And then the three other components that are sort of new is a replanting agreement as part of tree removals, a more substantial series of violations that are contingent on the size and value of the tree. And lastly, a tree fund, which is we think of that similarly to how we think about the rec fund. So violations and contributions related to tree removal. So for example, if I have to take down 4 trees on my property, but I have no place to replant those, I would contribute some amount of money to the tree fund. Ultimately, that money would go into a pool similar to the rec fund. We would get advice from tree commission on how to spend that. It would be allocated towards trees, plantings, fertilizing, trimming, that sort of thing. And ultimately, we would make a decision on how that gets spent. That's just of it. There's a lot of details. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone here has.
Yeah, I have one question, because we discussed this a little bit, and it makes sense if you're taking down a tree but replacing, et cetera. But what about in the essence of if it's a dead tree, if it's a tree that has to come down?
That's well defined.
No, but would you have to then replace that tree? So I mean, it's
No,
like,
you do not.
okay, that was my question. Yeah.
Does the new law apply to village trees? Like, it's like, if there's trees on village owned property, right? So we have
Yes,
to
there
do
are.
the
And
same
so
process.
those are defined. But what's your question? Would the village have to pay a fine for removing a tree?
Well, not pay a fine, but like, would we be subject to the same analysis about the removal and obligations to replant, whether there or somewhere else on village property? I mean,
I think the answer is yes. It begs a certain question about how the village approves
Actually,
all
the answer
construction
is
projects.
no, because then you would be binding the hands of all the future boards in terms of spending appropriated money. So you cannot require a board in 10 years to spend the money to replace trees. It's just not an appropriate use of public funds. So there's a limitation on the length of time that you can bind future legislative bodies as to public funds. So it would not apply to trees removed from the village property.
Could we have a suggestion?
How come we can require that we collect garbage, but we can't require that they replant trees?
Require that you
I
collect
mean, like
garbage?
future boards are gonna also have to pay for.
It's a Department of Public Works service as opposed to whatever the rationale or reasoning is to remove a tree for for public purposes. You would be removing a tree to accommodate an expansion of a playground, or you would, so.
To be perfectly
So
honest,
in
that element wasn't really considered.
Mhm.
And the reason is that for the most part, the trees are on public property is generally addressed as it relates to electrical infrastructure. And so, there's a component of the trees and all the tree wells on sidewalks that have a big impact on power lines. And so, there's an expectation when there's a massive undertaking to trim back trees growing, that have grown into the power lines, that there will be an arborist involved, that they'll use best practices when pruning, and that if the tree can't be pruned in such a way to protect the power lines, it'll be removed, but only when necessary. So I think that's generally what happens, but so there isn't really an element about, I guess, are you talking about Gould Park, for example? Is that what's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's trees everywhere. There's trees of, water.
Well, it's a good example of a
Yeah,
of a
but Gould
recent
Park, we just put them
removal of
in.
quite
yeah.
a few trees that was controversial.
Yeah.
So I think that just like with, any public project that the village does, I think it should be reviewed, the same way, but site plan and architecture review as should trees. I think if the Parks Department wants to take down, several, old trees along, and we'll probably think that should go to an arborist for assessment.
I think too.
Not included here, but we could add that.
Well,
Yeah.
naturally, the public property is managed to the public interest or on behalf of the whole village, where as you could have a situation where private property where it's in the interest of somebody who's a developer or wants to do something, that it's to the detriment of, everyone around them. And they're making the decision based on their own property and not the village as a whole. So I guess whether it's written in the code or not, the village, one could think, would be managing the public property for the public good.
But we may want to add it just as a layer, but so if the board is of the mind to move forward with this, the next step would be scheduling a public hearing
The
already?
next step would be drafting a local law,
Okay,
because these are, this is proposed language leading toward a conclusion. So really, it's an expansion of the tree removal process and an expansion of the violation process, and also the establishment of a special purpose fund for the replanting of trees. So I attached a code that we had drafted at my firm for Newcastle. It has a lot of these same elements. So working with Trustee Patino's language and, incorporating that so I can get a draft to you for a public hearing. You already have two
Yeah,
public
that's
hearings
good.
on the 28th and
so does the board want to move forward with this? Is that it?
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Laura?
Yes.
Kristen? All right, so let's schedule a public hearing. We have to give you enough time to draft a new law also. So when in October, what's the second meeting in October? Is that,
Oh, I don't, with the
anybody
first.
know?
Although, when you,
that?
Liz, do you have the board's calendar in front of you?
no,
I'll get it.
we can also schedule the public hearing at the next board
So it's the
meeting.
12th.
Can't schedule the public. hearing
October
till the
12th and
last day.
October 26th.
How about we schedule for the 26th? Is that all right? I'll give you enough time, Lily?
Why so far away?
I'm trying to give us some time.
Wait,
I just gotta
well,
write the law.
I can draft a law and we can, I can put it on the agenda for a discussion and then we can set the public hearing for the first
So let's do the 12th?
meeting, the first meeting in October. That's no problem. I just want to make sure you have a law in front of you before you schedule the hearing.
All right, so you're comfortable if we schedule for the 12th?
Yep.
Okay. So is there a motion to schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, October 12th at 6:30 to address the proposed amendment to the current tree? Tino, second trustee Nell, all in favor? So be it.
Yeah, you have two sections in your code, so we'll need to just make sure that then the tree commission section clearly gives them the power to be reviewing and to providing recommendations. So we want to make sure that that schedule's in there as well.
All right, discussion item number 5 is a Ferry Festa update. Richard, do I turn to you on that?
Sure. So just to recap where we've been and what we've been working on. At the July meeting, we added an item to the agenda for the board to consider. It was the first discussion that we were having to see about a Festa for 2021. On that particular day, we talked about it, and you all determined that you would like to try to have a Festa for this particular year. And I think you suggested or determined the date should be September 25th, which is a Saturday. Following that meeting, we tried to initiate a process whereby we could get a committee together who would be interested in working on the project and to see if there was general community support for the project. Our friend Patty came forward and volunteered to help us with that, and we very much appreciate that. On the particular day of the first meeting, we had a number of representatives from the community, the business community, and we discussed a number of items. One of which was there was some sentiment back and forth, realizing that the village board had set the desired date that they had in mind. There were certain people that could or could not be active participants at that time. And there was some discussion back and forth The date that you had chosen was a Saturday, and the event's always been on a Saturday. But there was some feeling that it should be maybe considered to be a Sunday, which I guess you all have considered in the past. And so there was some discussion on that issue. And the Chamber of Commerce was going to go out and poll some of its membership and the business community to see what their sentiment on that. There was also some nominal conversation about the current state of the COVID virus and some concern, how that would impact the event. We had some photographs. I know that you've had thousands of people on the street. It looks like a very cool event, given the proper climate for that kind of event. We adjourned that day. There was some discussion about maybe putting it over till a later date, wanting to come forward with a recommendation to you all at the meeting tonight. We had another meeting of the committee as a follow-up to see what kind of information had been garnered from the community last week. Unfortunately, we didn't have quite the attendance that we had at the first meeting, so that was a little disappointing. We got together and the representatives from the Chamber of Commerce had indicated that they had canvassed their people. However, we didn't have the returns yet. And I think they sent a letter this week to you all indicating that it was their feeling that Sunday was their preferred date, which was consistent with what they had shared at the meeting. We were expecting some logistical information on that was not forthcoming. So it makes it very difficult to navigate how that letter or that sentiment can actually be incorporated. Because we don't have a representative response on the other side. Clearly and surely there were some people that favored Saturday, and they were not represented in that letter. Nevertheless, we met last week amongst the few of us that were there. There was a lot of representatives from the village, very few representatives, disappointingly, from the community or the business interests. So we met last week, and at that point, the prime area of discussion is the deteriorating situation with respect to COVID and the variant. And I'll ask our distinguished chair to come forward. I think we have a lot of concern about that. And honestly, to be very honest, we're wondering if this is really a good year to have that level of an event. We certainly wouldn't want to be the source of a super spreader event starting here in Dobbs Ferry. So there was some other collateral conversation about maybe an alternative event, either a restaurant type event that you've had in the past, or maybe something at the waterfront. Just a lot of concern about not really knowing where we're going to be a week or two from now or a month from now. So Patty, I hope I summarized pretty well. Come forward. Come forward. We're interested. Thank you for coming tonight.
Good afternoon, Patty Steinschneider, appointed chair by the mayor at the organizational meeting. The only member, oh no, I think Joe Rooney might have been also.
You're the only member?
No.
No, at the night that you appointed, her.
In December of last year.
But I think there were two names. I think it was me and I think Joe Rooney was also
Oh,
mentioned
I see what you said.
on the reorganization night. So there are a lot of people interested in it. I would love to have a Ferry Festa this year. I mean, there's nothing that would be more fun. Unfortunately, I think that the current status of COVID suggests that anything resembling the Festa would be a risk, one that I'm not comfortable with. And I think all of you assume me as being a risk taker, person that's willing to go out kind of on the edge a little bit. So the Festa intends to bring people from many different places, including several that are currently seeing spikes in COVID. We would expect to see people coming from Yonkers and from Terrytown that right now are both recognized as being locations where the COVID rates are increasing quickly. Even in Dobbs, although it's like the numbers aren't that dramatic, we've seen a 400% increase.
We're at 13 cases.
Right, but we went from
We had-
one.
Yeah, we were having one case today. We have 4 new cases.
So we've gone up 400%. I mean, that's obviously the risk of some of the statistics that we have to work with, but I think it's very, very difficult to really assess where we're going to be, certainly on September 25th. One of the reasons we talked about potentially pushing this off for a month was to be able to have better chance to see what was happening time to plan it, and then if it wasn't gonna work, time to cancel it. If we plan this now and we cancel it, it just doesn't work. I've heard about the discussion pertaining to the day of the festa. It's been a discussion that we've had in many other years. In my opinion, and it's only my opinion, I don't have any real say, the festa is a Saturday event. It's a Saturday event that's in the downtown. If there are issues that store owners have with it, they should come forward and participate and find a way to shape it to work for them. I just don't think there should be a festa this year, but there's no reason that something different cannot be planned. People have talked about wanting to do something on a Sunday. They've talked about wanting to do protect the dine in Dobbs Ferry was, I think, very successful. And we did that in the middle of the COVID peak, and we did that safely. I think there are issues. Do you close the streets? Do you not have to close the streets? I know we closed the street that time. I'm just not sure that's necessary. But those are all things that need to be worked out. And I think a dine out in Dobbs is a possibility. Something at the waterfront has also been suggested. I think that's something that, there's more room at the waterfront. I think the risk of you doing anything in the downtown that says like it's going to be a mini festa, you just have to plan that you're going to have thousands of people. And I think if you have thousands of people, you're going to have a high level of risk. River Market could be another option if people wanted to put that together. That was very successful and it was much more spread out. And it's something that could be considered. My advice is to not try to have a festa this year.
We made this decision last time, but I think things may have changed since we've made that decision. Personally, I'm still inclined to go forward with the festa, maybe making it a shorter period of time or maybe, I think you should a shorter period of time, but certainly we should discuss it and we should go see how we feel about it. So I'll start with you, Maura, at the end. What do you think?
The Ferry Festa historically has always been on a Saturday, as Patty shared with us. It is a celebration for the community. We welcome and appreciate the collaboration of the business owners in the downtown because it happens in the downtown. But it is an event for our residents. Let's not forget that. I will be inclined to having the festa, but of course, just really with a careful review of how we move forward in the next 2 weeks or so. We're selecting the right day in terms of keeping it on a Saturday and the resources that we have with our police department, who plays a major role in this event.
Can I go next?
Sure.
I missed last time, so that was sad. A couple of things to mention. Planning a festa August 10th for something in October is just a really fast turnaround. I feel like it's disrespectful to all the businesses downtown to have to plan against something like that. If either day, like Saturday, Sunday, if we're going to drop it on them amongst everything else they're trying to deal with right now with the variant and the past year and a half, to then be like, oh, by the way, we're going to shut the streets down in a month and a half and you can't have a day of anything. It's just too much. I mean, I'm just on board with not doing it this year. I think we should do another dine out. That was awesome and it was safe and it brought people downtown. It has a similar like effect of gathering without the numbers that you get with a festa.
We still close the street though?
Yeah, I think you close the street for that, but you're coming to sit and eat, not.
When we did the dine out last year, though, did we have the parklets in place then?
No.
No.
It seems to me once you close the
We had
street,
outside tables.
you're gonna
but
get-
not
Right,
parking.
No, because you have
Across the street, so
open
you can put
bar.
the tables
That's
on
what
the
you had.
on the
That's
street, right?
that's what brings the people. It's
Well,
like the
But then
gathering.
closing the street, doesn't that cause the same problems for?
No, because
businesses?
festa is 1 to 8 p.m. So, and you shut down at 11, 10:30, you shut the streets down and then they're gone the rest of the day. So we did it, I think it was 4 to 8, it could
Ah.
be later. It was just the end of the day. So like you get the whole day to do what you're doing.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, so basically like the planning is just to turn it around that fast and get vendors and like be able to
And
pay
then have
for
to
it.
cancel
that
if
whole
something
thing,
should
and
happen.
cancel it. It's really risky in so many ways and health wise, it's risky too. So That's the part that I would say. And then like the future Saturday, Sunday discussion, I mean, that's a whole different thing. That's not for this.
Mike, what do you think?
This is a very good point. I, while I'm inclined to have a festa this year, just because I think it would be sort of encouraging for people. I also, I think I can't really say very hard to predict what's going to happen. I mean, I think at some point, someone has to decide when the date of deciding is, right? So whether that's tonight or whether that's September 1st or whatever, I mean, I think we have to say, when's a cutoff and when do we analyze what the data is? Because we can't wait until the week before, right? It's just that's not fair for everyone. I don't know if there's been any discussion about when a sort of cutoff point would be for this. If there has, and you can add to this conversation in some way. Appreciate it.
Usually we start planning this 6 months in advance.
Okay. Yeah, this is all news to me. I don't know.
Right. The idea of trying to put something together in 3 months would be heroic, but maybe doable. It's hard, and there's a lot of cost to this, and the way we pay for this, or a good portion of it, not all of it, is we bring in people who pay to participate. And I don't know that we are, I mean, is the village prepared that if we have a $10,000, $15,000 shortfall, that they'll pick that up? I don't know that that's fair to the taxpayer.
But when you say shortfall, what are you referring to, shortfall?
Well,
We pay the police, right? Or don't we? Do you reimburse them?
what we do is we collect, I have to be careful on this because I actually don't know anything I'm talking about. We collect funds from the vendors. We get donations, we get sponsors. We've had competing real estate firms offering more and more money to get the stage versus the bouncy castles. So that generates in a normal year, guessing 15, 18, maybe it's a little higher than that, 15, 18, something around there.
Yeah, at the high end.
And then what do you do with that money? You pay it to us?
All the money that comes in is deposited with the village. No money that comes in goes to anybody else.
The whole goal was like the vendors and that pays for itself,
pays for itself,
and
yeah.
hopefully the village isn't putting much of the bill at all.
And
So
then depending on what the fees are for the DPW and the police, I would say, okay, I'll do this carefully. If it was,
Let me just say, if you dine out and close the street, then it's all ours.
Correct. Yes.
So even if you're saying there's a shortfall, by shortfall just means that we're paying the police out of our own and DPW. Whereas with dine out, it would be the same thing. We're paying the police and DPW.
but at a fraction of the intensity. I mean, Chief should opine on that, but if we're preparing for, I mean, I shot Chief a glance a little while ago because one of the conversations we had was, why not have it on the 2nd of October? And that was because it was going to be the same day as the homecoming. And now homecoming's moved to the 1st, which we were told couldn't happen. But the idea of trying to have a homecoming and the festa would overtax safety of the police. So it's an intense event. It's an all out. I don't think the dine out generates anywhere near that
And we
kind
don't
of
have to
police.
close the street.
yeah, I mean, we can all figure out what
Yeah.
dynamic means. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be the same thing.
So and when it comes to things like Saturday, Sunday, I thought the superintendent of public works was, very adroit in explaining, why only Saturday would work, why Sunday would not work for the kind of event we had as a festa. I don't think that same problem necessarily hits as bad if it's on a Sunday. And as Trustee Nell said a little while ago, the dine out was like a 4 to 8, a much shorter time frame. It's basically 7 hours less that the streets are closed.
Well, we could always make the ferry festa shorter, but let's move on to what.
Let's keep going.
So, Mike, do you have an opinion?
I'm inclined to not have it.
Larry?
I'm inclined to have a smaller event of some kind. If you'd asked me a month ago, I would have been 120% for the Festa.
Yeah.
But given everything that's going on and given the time frame, I think it would be a very bad idea.
So yours is no to Fairy Fest.
No.
Nicole,
I agree.
no to Festa.
No.
And Donna?
No, I mean, first with what Christie said, I mean, I've been involved in event planning and to pull something off like this in what, 2 months is insane.
Well,
We're
and the
not gonna get
likelihood that
people.
we'll have to cancel it because of these variants
And then
is
we have
high.
to cancel it, yeah, it's too risky.
It's a
We don't know
virtual
what's
certainty
happening.
that this Delta thing is going to get worse
Yeah.
before it gets better. So.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the majority.
Thank you for putting the work in up until this point.
But I do think that there were a lot of,
I know you all, but we met, we talked about this a month ago. We were moving ahead with.
I
this.
think you
There was a
guys
lot of
have-
work,
you-
So
you-
thanks for doing that.
And you guys have been good on the, I mean, this is perhaps the most involved the mayor and village board has ever been before
I'd like-
the Festa.
I'd like us to figure out these other issues sooner than later. So, I mean, because next year we should be having a Festa and I
Absolutely.
don't want to be debating this at 6 months out. Saturday, Sunday, all the other requests that were put in the letter by the chamber. And if we have to properly survey the businesses ourselves, we have time now to do that. And I think we should take advantage of it because
One thing to point out with the Saturday, Sunday discussion is, the businesses are told, and what I always understood is that Festa was created to bring people downtown to help the businesses, and that that was the intent of Festa. And if the businesses are the ones saying that Saturday is not working, and what the actual truth is now
Some
is that it's
businesses.
really, some businesses, yes, there are definitely businesses that super benefit from Festa,
Mhm.
guaranteed. But it's more that like Festa is a Saturday event. Festa is a gathering of residents and people who want to come to Dobbs Ferry. And if what Festa is this thing that's a Saturday party on the streets, as long as that's what we articulate and that the businesses all understand that that's just part of what's Dobbs Ferry. And it's not, I'm sorry, it's not there to necessarily benefit your business. It's this thing that
On
we
that
do.
day.
It's a celebration that we do on Saturdays. Then I think that is just what we need to be saying, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So that's where
I
the
agree with you.
disconnect is
Yeah.
that when a business is told, oh, you should just try and reap the benefit, like this is for you, this is for businesses, and they're like, but it totally, isn't for me, and you're not.
yeah, but it is
But it-
though, because I've run into friends that are from like other areas and they came to the Festa and then they're like, oh, I didn't realize how cute this town was. I'm gonna
Right.
come back and go to Cookery or Harper's, like, I'm gonna come back for dinner. So it does benefit them because it brings people back to Dobbs Ferry that never would have come here in the first place.
Right.
There are
But it's just more
364 other
palatable, I
days when
think,
people
to
will come back to the
understand
village.
That it's a ritual, it's a Dobbs Ferry ritual
It's a
that has,
tradition.
this is the definition of this ritual, and that says a different thing, I think.
I
And
think
that
that's a
you-
great definition
point.
and that's how we should approach it. I don't
Yep.
think we should, let's stick with
Yeah,
that and so
because
that we
that's
don't
where,
have
like-
this conversation every
Right,
time.
that's why the businesses are like, well, let's do what benefits the businesses. Maybe it should be Sunday, da, 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 da. It's like, no, it's the ritual, it's this Dobbs Ferry tradition.
We can do other things to the business.
I mean,
We
we'll
also
do
can't
other
favor
things.
certain businesses' preferences over other businesses' preferences and stuff like that. And you run into that kind of stuff too.
But we won't be doing that if we say this
I agree.
is
That's great.
about.
It's a
Perfect.
tradition.
And the
Saturday.
Festa has evolved. I mean, from the 14 years that I live here, the Ferry Festa has changed so much. So every year we learn something new, we adapt something new. So it's evolving and we change it based on some of the visitors and requests and the diversity of the people that they are within the village. I just think that we just gotta be more open-minded about changes, but also not forgetting the essence of what initiated the Festa and what it really means.
Right, okay, so I think those are all good points, and thank you, Patty, and
Thank you, guys.
we'll make a decision, I guess, on something like a dine out sometime probably in October. Or October. We're not gonna
Well,
make the
maybe the
decision.
restaurants could come. Well,
Yeah, I mean, this is where the chamber really could hopefully come up with an idea. I mean, I'm the community representative for the chamber, so I can take it back. The chamber could come up with an idea of an alternative event to have that would be beneficial for the specific businesses in town that could use this the most. And I think that's gonna be the restaurants. It's gonna be the small shops. So maybe there's a way to do that that makes sense for people, but it should be involving them in the decision. Anybody who thinks that I do this because I want it to be a limited group is not paying attention. I've gone to all the restaurateurs. I've said, this is a great opportunity for you guys to participate. Let's all get together and do it. It's hard the village administrator noted, that the turnout at the last meeting was very small,
Right. Okay.
you know?
I mean,
Appreciate it.
I couldn't quite turn it around that fast either. It was pretty late notice and in the middle of the day, so I. Speaking on behalf of the businesses, I couldn't make it either, so.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks, Matt.
Discussion item number 6 is to set a date to schedule a second public forum on New York State Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act for the purpose of further public discussion on local licensing of retail dispensaries and or on-site consumption. We had our last meeting about a month ago, so we have to schedule another date. I think we were talking about it was a Thursday. It was a Thursday, right? It wasn't a.
So this would be a separate date?
Yeah.
It can take any form. You just really want to encourage getting as much information from your constituents because the deadline is the end of the year. So you can schedule them as the topic gets out and people get more interested. You just, you want to set a date.
So, we could do it the date of the Board of Trustee meeting, or
Sure.
we could do it during the week when there is not a Board of Trustee meeting. So we could either do it the first week of October when there isn't a Board of Trustee meeting, or if you want to put it on at 5 o'clock on October 12th, we could do that, or we could do it the week of the 18th. So what are you guys thinking?
5 o'clock is early to encourage
Yeah.
community participation.
If people coming.
I
from
just
work
think
and-
people are gonna have trouble getting off of work to do it.
I'm gonna have trouble getting there.
This is another item on the agenda, just like anything else. I think that we should treat it just as such.
So put it on the Board of Trustee regular
Yes.
meeting.
See, I see it as a special.
I do too.
A special form. We've had special forums in the past on various issues.
I'm gonna put it, I disagree with it, my
Okay,
forehead today.
Yeah, it's not a public body, a meeting of the public body, so you really have a lot of flexibility. The powers that be have adopted this and you want to just be ready to test the waters and get information. So you can open it at 6. Again, you don't need a quorum to open it. You just provide the Zoom information, you take in information, you talk about what you've learned.
And everybody can come via Zoom, right?
Yeah, having the
Like
Zoom will be
us, too.
helpful.
Can we come via
Can we
Zoom
come
too
via
for something
Zoom
like
too?
that?
Right, so what are you thinking?
See, I'm thinking that, I really want to hear from the community on this. I
Yes.
mean, for us to sit up here and
Right.
give our own personal opinions, this is a community issue and I really want to hear from them. So I would, whatever makes it easiest for most people to participate, that's what I'd be looking for.
And I wasn't envisioning doing another presentation. I mean, you had the introductory
Yeah.
presentation. Really now, the important thing is to get comments from the public.
Right.
So-
You're not taking action, you just want to encourage people to discuss.
And so this all can be done by Zoom. It doesn't have to be done in person?
Yes.
Okay.
What are the dates that are being thrown out?
So if we wanted to do the first week of October, I was thinking October 6th, at like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
October 6th.
Or if you want to do the 7th.
I think 7 o'clock is,
Too late?
no, better.
You could also have the opportunity to set up a table at an existing event upcoming, and just.
No, that's encouraging people to gather.
Set up a table at the very festive.
So are we okay on the 6th or
Outside the
7th?
library or wherever people gather for whatever reason.
6th or
6th is
7th,
good.
it doesn't matter to me.
That's all I'm saying.
All right.
I'm lucky if I
So
plan.
let's
a
do
weekend.
October 6th at 7 o'clock.
And we'll get a press release out, so we can start to circulate the availability of engaging.
And we can
public.
get this into the enterprise as well, so people know about it.
That's the press release, yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion to schedule a second educational public forum on October 6th at 7 o'clock to accommodate further discussion? Trustee Nell, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. Discussion item number 6.
Seven.
7.
7. The discussion authorizing the interim village administrator to execute a public-private partnership agreement with River Arts. We have a letter from River Arts dated March 19th, 2021, and we have a draft of the agreement, where we are going to make a payment to River Arts in the amount of $3,000 to support the program. Is there anything you want to add to that, Richard?
No, I mean, yeah, I think you've summarized it well. They provide certain art experiences that residents are able to participate in, and this is a collaboration that goes back many years. So
This is something that the village has done
It's done here.
every year, as long as I can remember. So Lori Lee is working with the executive director to come up with a formalized agreement, and I think we should just proceed.
So is there a motion? Trustee Taylor, second, trustee Sullivan, all in favor? That's unanimous. Action item number 8 is a discussion of a submission of grant application for clean energies communities grant awards. I think we have a memo from the village administrator dated August 2nd describing the funds and what we're going to do with it. So Richard, do you want to just elaborate for the benefit of the public?
sure. So with the support of the Dobbs Ferry Sustainability Task Force, the village has qualified for $115,000 in grant funds from NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities Leadership Round. We have to apply for those grants. They are the sum total of many activities and actions that you all have taken to make the community an even cleaner energy community. So the total that's available to you, and it must be applied for, is a sum of $115,000, which is a combination of about 7 different efforts that you've undertaken. We are going to come in shortly in September with the report of Honeywell Corporation on their building solutions feasibility study, which looked at all of your energy use in all of your buildings. And they're going to come in with a series of projects, part of which will be to upgrade the heating units and the air handlers and AC, HVAC in this building, which will result in potentially thousands of dollars in energy savings, and it'll upgrade the systems to be producing cleaner energy. So we're suggesting that the entire amount that has been awarded to you based on your past clean energy efforts be put into this particular project towards the Honeywell project. It'll be $115,000 as a part of a major effort at the buildings, which we will share a little bit later.
Okay, so is there a motion to apply for these grants? Trustee Taylor, second, trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes. And I want to send a thanks out to the sustainability.
Yes.
You want to do it?
No, well, I was about to say exactly the same thing, so go. You're the mayor.
It's quite all right. I want to do a thanks to the Sustainability Task Force. I understand we are only one of 4 communities in our region to be awarded the top tier of financial awards. The clean energy actions our community is taking. Once again, we could not have done this without the tireless work of the volunteers on the Sustainability Task Force. As many of you know, we conducted 2 community campaigns earlier this year to promote the clean energy benefits of the demand response efforts in community solar. So I want to thank Patty, who's not here, Janet Rosa, Linda Stutz, Jennifer Murphy, Rob Barron, Nina Orville, who all contributed to making those campaigns a success. We also were recognized for adopting the New York Stretch Energy Code, which Emila Sherian helped with usher through. And finally, Rhonda Russo, who spends countless hours ensuring the village can accurately track energy usage and produce annual energy benchmarking reports. We thank the STF volunteers for all the work they've done to save our village money while making this a greener and more efficient place to live. So thank you, everyone, for your work. I also want to thank Alyssa. I want to thank Liz and the village administrator, Jennifer. See, once you start naming people,
Yeah,
you
really.
always leave people out. So, thank you, everyone, for their efforts on this. a really team effort, so thank you. Action item number 9 is a discussion of accepting a gift of $5,000 to the Gould Park Improvement Fund from the Ariana and Daniel King Fund. We are in receipt of a memo from Kendra Garrison, who seeks approval for the donation, which will be used for the Gould Park Playground. I don't see any issue with this, but is there a motion to accept this? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? Thank you, and I want to thank Ariana and Daniel for their generous support. It's very kind of you to do, and thank you very much. Discussion of submission of a New York State Library construction grant application for building upgrades consisting of installation of automatic door openers at main and garage entrances. A new HVAC condensing unit for the Dobbs-Ferry Public Library. I'm sorry we made you wait to the end. If I would have known, I would have moved you to the top. Sorry. You want to come up and talk?
I want to point something out.
That sounds very ominous, so.
No, it's not ominous. It's just, I want to be clear. So I've been working, first of all, I would like to thank Rich for being, and Jeff for really helping me through this process, because this is the first library construction grant that I've been working on, and they've really helped me understand the process and given me assistance via Fiona Matthews. So that's been very much appreciated. Both myself and the library board are very appreciative of that. Fiona was working on the resolution that is coming up next after this. And her experience, she basically bolstered some of the numbers that I had put together. And I want to just be very clear and upfront that she did that. And so the resolution has one number in it, and the memo I sent to you has a different one because I sent the memo before I went away last week. I totally agree with what she did, because some of my numbers, while I'm waiting for the final numbers to submit the grant on August 24th, but I wanted to get the information to you as soon as possible. And I take Fiona's advice very strongly on that, on making sure that we're covered as far as the funds go. So the memo, I believe, has 62,000. She bumped it up to 73. And the numbers were accidentally reversed. It's a larger number for the door openers and a smaller number for the electrician's work. If you just flip those numbers, that was just a oversight. I didn't catch that.
So just to be clear, the preliminary project budget is 73,000, which requires a 50% match, which the library will contribute 12,000.
Correct. From the library trust, which there was some monies left over from the original construction trust in 2003. So we're using some of those funds that were left from the original construction. Also, just so that you know, originally the library, New York State Library construction grants this year almost doubled, the state almost doubled the amount of funds available, which is huge. It's a huge increase. And I was hoping to be able to really do a major HVAC project, and it just wasn't. The state doesn't give you enough time when, we just learned, I'm sorry. Right. We just learned about it and had no time to really do the kind of planning work that it's going to take to do that, because they have to do, we spoke to the village engineer, and they have to do a lot of background work before we could even get to a number to take to the state. But what Fiona helped me with was looking at what we had to do to get the HVAC just up and running this summer, which thank God it's running. It's cool there. We're officially a cooling center again. Hallelujah. That the funds that we're asking for, the $27,000, that was an actual quotation from our HVAC guy. The work has been completed, but we can still apply for this grant to cover that work. So that's actually, thank you to Fiona for figuring that out for us, that we can actually go ahead and apply for it, even though we've already completed it, because it's considered a replacement of outdated equipment. And I think, we'll wait and see what, as Rich said, the Honeywell report may add fodder to a future project to get that HVAC up to current efficiency standards.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. So is there a motion to commit matching funds for New York State Public Library Construction Program? It looks like our match will be our payment will be $24,500. So is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? That's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So I think we've done resolutions 1, 2, 3, 4. So that leaves the resolution approving the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer. Is there a motion? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. The minutes of July 13th, 2021. Does anybody have any comments? Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of July 13th, 2021? Is there a motion?
I wasn't here.
Oh, trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Patino. All in favor? That passes 5-0. Liz, just in case, Liz, that's 5-0.
Who motioned on that one? I was just trying to figure out
Nicole.
the resolutions. Okay,
Sullivan.
Patino, second.
thank you.
And Nell and Taylor were not here. Trustee liaison reports, nominating committee.
We didn't meet last month, but the meeting tomorrow.
Okay, conservation advisory board.
Well, they did some hard work on the tree code, which they'll be happy to know is on the agenda. There was a recent planting application that went through. I think it's happening. Richard, do you have the date for that?
I don't have that date.
Sorry, I don't have it.
HRB,
HRB, they approved the master's project, so that'll be coming back to us. And same with 186 Ashford. They approved that and it's coming back to us. The one near Mara's house. That project. There's gonna be some new signage at the gas station by Stop and Shop, if it's not already there. That was the last meeting. There's a new shop opening up next door to Tomatillo it's replacing that black former podiatrist place. So they presented their signage and stuff.
this is not a name.
It's called, yeah, it's chocolate, but it's like, it's a ethically sourced chocolate that like speaks to your emotions and helping people. It's a whole thing. It's pretty cool. I know, I was sad that was on Zoom.
Didn't bring anything.
and John were snacking over here. Is it good chocolate? Yeah, it's called a pod.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be nice because the front is not great right now, and so they're gonna be doing nice renovations to it. And Hudson Social, you guys sent with the garbage bin and things to the AHRB. The AHRB wants them to improve and make really nice garbage bins, so they're gonna rework it. See, there's good news coming out of the AHRB, guys.
How about the traffic committee?
There is a lot of talk about this bus stop change. Actually, not a lot, just a small bit of talk about this bus stop changes that Richard talked to Rob about, I guess, that the county is looking at changing where the bus stops are by Walgreens. So that's just something to pay attention to. And then thanks to the DPW for moving, there's a sign, the athletic sign. The traffic committee wanted them to move the sign closer to a different part of the island so that you could see better when you're coming off of the sawmill and you're doing that yield.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like we won so many more things that the sign got bigger, and so it's harder to see, so they moved it. That's great, it's a big, awesome sign.
Yeah.
That's the news.
Great. Planning board?
Planning board, as with the AHRB, 185, 191 Ashford Avenue will be coming to us. They have approved the plans and they're recommending it back to us. And 156 Palisade Street is still in limbo. Still trying to get it to conform to code.
Parks and Rec?
I unfortunately had a meeting last night, so I couldn't attend.
Board, do you have any ad hoc committees that you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any announcements, except maybe Jen, what was the announcement about the streets, Con Ed?
So they were supposed to start on Wednesday, tomorrow, and because of the heat that's coming towards the end of this week, they asked if they could push it to next week, so it's not like they start, and then the road is milled and rough for the rest of the week and the weekend, so they're supposed to start on.
Oh, they're worried about the road being rough?
That's good.
So Monday is the tentative start date.
Oh, God.
We'll send out an email blast closer to the end of the week with more information.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anybody else have any other announcements? Okay, I see Liz, you found
The gavel.
The gavel, wow.
Yes. There being no further business. Oh, I suppose motion to close the meeting. Trustee Sarah, second, trustee Sullivan, all in favor. Meeting is officially
Next.